Welcome to the Stepmom Side with Alicia, the podcast for stepmoms ready to create the life they want and one they actually have a say in. Here we talk all things stepmom life and just a little bit more. Leave the superficial conversations at the door and get ready for perspective shifts and actionable advice to help you on your way to creating the life you want, one step at a time. Hi, Rachel. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. My audience may or may not be familiar with you. If you could give us kind of like the rundown on you, like what is your deal? What's your story?
What's my deal? My deal actually just changed about 10 days ago. I started out as a forgiveness coach and then a fatherless daughter coach, and I'm now moving on to something that's much more broad, which is more like personal power coaching or empowerment coaching.
Oh, cool.
And it isn't anything about like healing your childhood wounds. It's more about exploring or, excavating how we got to where we are, why we think the way we do, if we are creating the happiness in our life that we want to. Sorry about the noise.
I've got it too.
It's a more like well-rounded kind of coaching. It isn't as niche as fatherless daughters, and things like labels and identity and happiness and self-awareness and ego and all kinds of awesome things that I love. So at the moment I'm doing that kind of coaching.
Oh, that's awesome. I love it. Like I love diving into, like you said, like why we think the way that we do, or like how you get stuck in like those cyclical patterns of like,
yeah,
it's never going to change.
Yeah. And, a lot of times coaching people, they don't want to do it because it seems really hard. It seems very painful. And I thought, what if instead of like diving in and excavating all of the pain, we just say, okay, who are you? And is this who you want to be? And if
I
not,
love that.
then what did the patriarchy tell you about who you need to be? What did your religion, your parents, your teachers, your peers, the society you grew up in, the generation you belong to, the partners that were bad for you, before the one that you're with, now. I wanted to look at the combination, kind of a holistic, I'm marketing it as who were you before the world got to you?
I love
So,
that.
yeah, I do too. I'm really excited about it.
That's awesome. I think that plays a lot into your role as a stepmom because you grow up like in a generation of whatever generation you grew up in. And in your house, there were, defined rules, whatever. And then now you're coming in like mid childhood potentially for these kids that already have like set rules or traditions or whatever their situation is at their
Yeah.
house. And then you come in with your own. How did that play
Yeah.
into your role as a stepmom or your journey as a stepmom?
So I'm a Gen Xer and I grew up with both mom and dad in the house. Dad was emotionally absent. I didn't really know anything about step parenting because I didn't have one. But I married a man from Argentina. And when I met him, we were living in the United States. At some point, he needed to go back because he had a young son who he had left with his parents because this little boy's mother was not interested in being in the picture. So that was his first wound, with the abandonment of his mother. His second was the abandonment of his father, to leave to go to the United States to try to make money. And the greatest loves of his life, my stepson, were his grandparents. They were his mother and father. They have sadly both passed away. So he has had a tremendous amount of loss in his life between his biological parents and the parents who raised him. So when I met him, he was 5. I met him on a vacation. But then I started living with him when he was 7. I moved to Argentina and we started living together. And it was difficult because his grandparents they felt so sorry for him because of his mother and his father that they gave him a tremendous amount of love, which is fine, but not much else in terms of structure or rules. He was absolutely the king of the house. He was not polite. He did not have manners. And I was tremendously turned off by it. I was also turned off by how much, there are people, I don't want to say docile because it's not necessarily that, being docile is good, but he would fight you on everything. He's one of those people who, if I tell my son, my biological son, something, he kind of trusts that it's coming from a respected older source. And so he says, okay, and he thinks about it. And my stepson was always, well, why? well, I don't know, there was this kind of like a fight in him that made it very difficult to live with him. And honestly, when he would go, he would spend his time between our house with his father and me and his grandparents when we moved to Argentina. He wasn't ready to let them go yet. And the truth is, he had a better time there. He had the run of the house, and he had a love that his father and I couldn't give him because he was a difficult kid with us.
Mm-hmm.
So we really didn't have the best relationship. It never occurred to me to like read a book about step parenting, and which is strange to me because when I don't know how to do something, I will ask for help. And I didn't. I now have a book on step parenting, and I got to it late. I didn't read it in anticipation of our move to Argentina. I don't know why. I felt like just our personalities they didn't mesh at all. And I know that I was very much in my ego with him. There was like this desire to control. And I know that that desire to control came because when I moved to Argentina, I fell into a huge depression. I was not able to work as a nurse because the country didn't validate my nursing license. And my marriage was not doing well. And so I was in a really, really horrible place where I felt like I had left everything, I had given up everything to be with this man and to create a family with him. And your first year as an expat can be really difficult to make the transition. On top of that, I'm living with a little boy that I don't get along with. So I know that I was in a very bad place. And as my ex-husband would, treat me badly, I would treat my stepson badly. So I yelled at him. I hit him a few times. I insulted him. And there was this resilience in him where he would look me in the eye and say, none of that is true about me. And which I'm now so grateful for, because he was letting me know, I'm not going to be affected by you or whatever.
That's incredible.
We tried to send him to counseling, which wasn't fair because we thought the problem was him. Absolutely in our ego, rather than saying, what are we doing wrong? No, he needs to change to be better for us. I look back now and I think it's amazing how people grow. Thank God people grow.
Oh my gosh.
And evolve because, Alicia, it is really the worst it is the worst behavior I've ever had with a person was my behavior towards him. He brought out the worst in me, and I did not know. I want to say that all of those reasons why was because I was in such a bad place. And when you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, you're not okay. And when you've made a decision to move to another country and then you realize you've made a mistake, and on top of that, now you've had your own baby, and the idea of, it was the worst. It was several of the worst years of my life.
And you're grasping at everything to like maintain control of something.
Yeah, because if we had been living in the United States, I just break up with the guy, whatever. I have my job, I have my nursing license. Yeah. But if I left everything for you, I'm going to cling to you because, damn it, I don't have anything else here. And how do I now go back with a child?
Yeah. Make your white flag, like, oh, this didn't work out. Like, what do I do now?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it was the worst years. It was the worst years. I'm not sure how much else to
say, like, share. And then what happened? Like, how did that change come about? Because you and your stepson are now good, right?
Yeah, my stepson is now 24. He is living in Dubai. He's living in Dubai. He's doing great. He's working in a hotel, and he now just got a job in Kyoto as a restaurant manager. So he's doing fantastic. That's awesome. One of the things that I really loved about my stepson was that he was 9 years older than my son, and he has always been a really good brother. There was never a time where he even like spoke badly to my kid. Even if my kid got into his things or his toys, my stepson was always, loving and patient and fun and just a really good big brother. And I recently told him that. I said, I do think that certain things need to be said, particularly the good things, because we always mention that we have no problem mentioning the bad things. Right. So I did want to compliment him as an older brother. What happened was that I left the marriage 11 years ago. Okay. When my son was 4 and my stepson was 13. And in healing myself and in getting better, I was able to see all of that. I mean, I knew every time I did something wrong to my stepson, I always knew it because I'm not a horrific person. I'm not evil. I'm not cruel. I could see that this was the worst behavior of my life. I didn't know how to stop it. And I sent him an email because we were now living in different cities. And I said, I just want to apologize for everything I ever did, every bad word, every hit, and he wrote back and he said, it's fine. We're good. And I thought,
That's
that's
it.
not good. Yeah, that's not good enough. Like, did you really hear me? I am devastated by how I treated you. And you're just like, yeah, sure, we're cool. Because we lived in different cities and because he was a teenager, we weren't going to get on the phone and have a conversation. The first conversation we had about it, I think he was 17 and he did come to visit us and he stayed in our house. And we had a conversation and I was able to explain to him where I was in my relationship with his father, who he doesn't get along with. It's really terrible that something that unifies my stepson, my son, and I is our huge disillusion with the man, with my ex, and with their father, and the many, many ways that he has failed all of us. So thankfully, this kid was able to listen to me, and he was able to understand that I was struggling too. And what I did was, in my apology, I also promised that it would obviously never happen again, and I let him know that I wanted a good relationship with him. And something that he does well is, because there's plenty of things about his personality that still kind of rub me the wrong way, but he's always open to a conversation. He does not get offended, which is fantastic because I don't get offended either, but so many people in my life take offense when you want to have an uncomfortable conversation. It's all about them getting defensive or having an ego about it. And he does not. So I love that. So the conversation can flow. And I can say, look, I think that in this situation, you might have not behaved in the right way, and he will actually listen. I don't really know how he describes me to his friends or the people in his life. I don't know if he calls me his stepmother or just uses my name, or if he sees me as like an aunt or a family friend. I'm 21 years older than him. I think he sees me as an adult that he can come to for advice. My advice, because I'm so into personal growth, my advice is usually different than most people's would be. Mm-hmm. Or I'll point something out that maybe someone else did not. And I think he really values that. And he tells me that when he asks me for an opinion out of the blue, he'll send me a message and he'll say, I wanted your opinion because I know that yours is probably going to be different. So I really love and value that.
I love that. I wonder if he asks for your advice because he knows that you're going to give him honest advice and you're not concerned about offending him. Like you're just going to be honest with him, just straight.
I don't know, because there's things that we don't talk about when he comes to visit, which isn't often. It's a lot of fun. We'll play board games. He will take my son out. My son is just, fascinated by getting to, walk around with the older brother and stuff like that. He's very good natured. He laughs a lot. He laughs easily. He can make fun of himself. All qualities that I really like that make him very likable. And I've told him that my relationship with him is the relationship that I'm most proud of in my life. And I'm obviously not closest to him. I'm much closer to my son. I'm closer to my best friend in terms of how much I share or how much I open myself up. Mm-hmm. But I'm so proud of this relationship because it was difficult when it started. It was difficult for a long time. It brought out the worst in both of us. But because I was able to let go of my ego and apologize, truly, genuinely, sincerely apologize, and show him that I would be different, he was able to forgive me. He was very generous in his spirit of forgiving me and saying, yeah, because he could have just said, I forgive you and it's over, but I really never want to speak to you again. Mm-hmm. But he was actually open to, okay, well, let's get to know her without the trauma of my father, without the depression that she was suffering through. Let's get to know her as this happy, optimistic, life coachy person that she is now. And I think there are a lot of things about me that he really loves, the way I was able to find out things about him that I really love. We just met each other at really bad times in our lives when we were both struggling and we weren't receiving any kind of emotional help or support, for him or for myself, neither of us was receiving help. We were both just struggling in life.
Yeah.
No one was understanding us. No one was helping us. And we were both struggling with this one person, with the same person in different relationships,
But didn't
as
even see it.
no, as a husband and as a father. And I'm telling you, to me, it's really sad that something, because we're obviously united by so many other things, the three of us. But we can't deny that one of the things that unites us is our, like I said before, our huge disillusion with this man. I was going to say something and I forgot what it was. Oh yeah, that I don't know, that I call him my stepson. And I told him before, I don't want you to ever think that is like I'm like a space that I'm creating, but I'm saying it out of respect for the woman who biologically brought you to earth, and out of respect for the woman that raised you. Like I'm not going to claim to be your mother because I wasn't. I didn't fulfill either of those two roles. So, like I said, I don't know how he calls me. If he talks about me to his friends, I don't know if he says stepmom or family friend or whatever, but I call him my stepson just out of respect for those other two women, not out of wanting to create a distance.
Yeah.
And I've told him that just so that I don't want that to ever hurt him. Like, oh, this is my son and this is my stepson. Like, I'm better with him now than I was ever with his dad, which is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, all of my in-laws really like me. They like me more than they like their own brother, but whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so I have two questions for you.
Yeah.
One, when you sent him that email, were you just a bundle of nerves?
Yeah.
Like, what if I send this to him? Because it's a paper trail, right? Like he could forward this to anyone. He could screenshot this, put it out. Like what prompted you to send him that email? Were you just at a really great point and you wanted to, like rebuild the bridge? Like where did that come from? That you felt like?
I don't remember because it was 11 years ago. I don't think at that moment I was thinking about rebuilding a bridge at all. He was 13 or 14. He was a difficult kid. I mean, he was a teenager. It was difficult to talk to him on a good day. And we were living in different cities. And, teenagers don't like to talk on the phone. So I thought, okay, well, I'll send him an email. I wasn't even thinking about a paper trail because I didn't detail any of like the things that I had done, thinking that he could now go to a court or a judge and say, look what this, No, it was just, hey kid, I really want to apologize for all the things that I ever did to you. I know that my behavior wasn't the best, whatever. I don't even remember what it said.
And when you sent him that email, like what, like best case scenario, what were you thinking would happen? Like what happened? Or were you like, did you overthink? Because I totally would have. Did you overthink like he's going to just be like you said, okay, that's great, but I want absolutely no relationship?
I don't think I thought about what he would answer. I think I really just needed to get this off my chest. I needed peace. I needed him to know that I was not the horrific person that he thought I was. There was some ego mixed in with genuinely wanting to atone for my behavior and wanting him to know that not everyone around you is a piece of shit. Just not everybody that you come into contact with. Like we are more than our worst behavior. I don't even think I considered if he was going to write back and tell me to go to hell, or he was going to write back with this like flower. I don't even know.
It was just for you. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what I expected on his part. But then when I received it and it was so abrupt and succinct and so like, yeah, sure, we're cool. I was like, that's it?
I just poured my heart out.
Cut the conversation. I like conversations.
Oh my gosh, that's so hilarious. Okay, and then now, like when you interact with him, talk to him, do you guys ever discuss his dad? Like, does that ever come up?
He doesn't like to talk about his dad. He didn't speak to his dad for like a couple of years recently. And then when he got the job in Dubai, he decided to kind of make some peace because he didn't want to go so far and not be at least speaking to the guy. But they're not close. He's much closer to other family members. He doesn't like to talk about it. And I have never gone into detail with him about the emotional abuse that I went through. If he saw it and he caught on to it at a very, very young age, that's on him. But I haven't talked to him. I have discussed it more with my son. But no, we don't really talk about we don't really talk about his dad. He's very much a kid about forward, looking forward, looking
Perfect.
forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's why when he said that it was okay that he accepted my apology, it was like, why would I ever talk about what happened in the past? It's over. It's over. Move on.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how healthy that is. Obviously, the idea of moving forward is fantastic,
Hmm.
but I do think that if you don't analyze what happened, you can't, like, I don't know. I'm not sure. He's kind of extreme in that way. He will not talk about the past. And I'm not sure how good that is. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if one day his whole world is going to crumble because he was moving forward so fast, so without looking back, that all of a sudden he's going to crash and burn about something. Because I don't want to stay in the past. I think I'm not like that kind of, victim that just loves to just wallow in that. But I do think we need to look back and analyze some things in order to move forward. To move forward, you need to look back. And he
Yeah.
doesn't do that. So no, he isn't someone that I can talk to about his dad.
That's
He
interesting. We
he'll
talked,
he'll shut it down pretty fast. Yeah.
oh my gosh. Yeah. We talked a little bit about that on your podcast, like understanding like things that happened and like how it affects you and how you move through life. And I agree, because to a degree, I did the same thing with my life, because as you know, like my dad wasn't around, but it was just like I just kind of went through life and then all of a sudden like I became a stepmom and everything kind of unraveled. And
Yeah.
because same like you, like I had a huge ego and nothing was ever my fault ever. And then you wake up and you're like, oh shit, like a lot of this is my own doing because I can't take my ego out of things. And so I need to look at like my behavior and how I've done things. So I think that something like that will probably happen or come about. Can you talk a little bit about an ego and like a stepmom role?
Um,
And if not, that's fine too. I don't want to put you on the spot.
yeah. I don't know because I don't think it's an absolute. I was very young when I became a stepmom. I think I was 24, 25.
Mhm.
I was not in a good relationship. I was not even a mother. So I think had I been a mother first, I would have been completely different. But I wasn't. And so I don't know. God, I hate that I'm not able to answer this question. I don't know about ego and stepmom. I know that
You
you need
talked
to,
about how your ego factored in to your
yeah.
relationship.
I wish I had been called out on it. I remember talking to this one therapist, and my husband and I had gone, and we just went in there and we complained about this kid and complained and complained and complained about him. And all she did was look at us. And at no point did she say, do you guys realize that it's your job to change rather than his job? Like I wish someone had like told me what I was doing wrong because I'm pretty receptive to correcting myself. Um, And I wish someone had told me. I wish the people that we had looked to for help to fix him had said to us, "You guys are going about this the wrong way." Yeah. Um,
I agree with you in the sense that my husband and I were just talking about this last night, how now that I have my own kid, I'm a better mom because I had my stepkids, because I got to learn like the small things don't matter. Like it used to drive me bananas. Like I would sabotage my night with my husband after the kids went to bed because they weren't in bed and bedtime was 10 o'clock and it's 10:01 and they're still down here. I would like blow a gasket. And then he'd be like, I don't even
yeah,
want to hang out with you. And I'm like, well, I'm pissed because the kids aren't in bed. And he'd be like, well, now that you were just a jerk, like I don't
yeah,
want to spend time with you because and so now I recognize that small things like that are just that. They're small things. Like it's not that big of a deal. And
yeah,
I don't get so wrapped around the axle about not everything being like completely perfect 24/7. Like I have a lot more space in my life for the messy parts or the gray parts. It's not so black and white where I definitely operated like that. And it sounds like maybe
yeah.
you operated like that as well.
I think that what was jarring to me was just how much of a spoiled kid he was, and
Mm-hmm.
how, my sister and I were not raised to be spoiled brats. And I know that it was coming from a place that, my in-laws were just really, they felt bad for him. They felt bad for this kid that had been abandoned,
For sure.
by both of his parents. And so any little thing that they could do to make him feel better, my father-in-law would come home every day with like a chocolate bar. And my stepson had cavities at the age of 5 or 6.
Oh,
To
wow.
me, that isn't love. To my father-in-law, it was to come home at the end of the day after work and give his kid some chocolate. And I was going up against, it wasn't just my ego, I was going up against my in-laws who were much older than my parents, so it was a different generation. And we had two very different styles of parenting.
Yeah.
And of course, mine was more difficult. So my stepson wasn't going to choose me; he was going to choose them, because that's where it was easy, and where he was safer. And I was going to challenge him.
That's what I see a lot in stepmoms that I coach. They're like, well, the kids don't want to be at our house because our house is, got structure, it's got routine, or it's the strict
Yep.
house. And like, they don't want to come here, and like, they're offended by it. And I'm like, well, let me ask you this. If you've got a boss that lets you do whatever you want, whenever you want, or you've
How
got a
much would you get done? Yeah.
like, where do you want to work? You're going to want to be with a boss that like lets you do whatever, and it's like a party, right? It's kind of the same thing. And kids need structure, they need routine. It's okay to be like the strict house, but yeah, like when you're going up against the in-laws, like because I did too, and obviously it
Yeah.
didn't go very well. Like I get it, but I love that your relationship with your stepson has come full circle, and you guys are on such a good term now, even if you aren't like super crazy close, but you guys are close in the sense that you can just talk to him, or like he comes to visit. I love that.
I think there's also something to be said for stepmoms out there for kind of getting through the years where you have to be the parent, because the years where you can be the friend are fantastic.
Hmm.
And the years that you're going to be the mom, they're not that long. They're like, what, 15, 18 years.
But it feels like
And
it.
then, yeah, and then, right. And then you're going to get someone that calls you at the age of 24 and says, hey, I need some advice. How do
Mhm.
you see this situation? And you're like, oh my God, he wants my advice. I feel so special, because you're just going along your day. You think he's handling his life. But then at some point, he had a problem and he thought, I'm going to call her.
Mhm.
And that her was me. And
Yeah.
it's amazing. And what I loved is that when he came to visit, when he was like 16 or 17, and we were first able to actually talk about it, he understood. He was like man enough or adult enough or no longer child enough to think, my stepmother was abused by my dad. And so she was coming from a place of pain and needing to protect herself and all of that. You cannot explain that to a kid who's 7 or 8, because it is all about them, and it should be about their emotional needs being met. I loved when he was able to understand me. I loved when he was adult enough to see it for something else. And because we're going to have so many more years as adults together than as child and mother, I mean, rock on. It's
Yeah.
it's not that long that you have as a mother. So if they're not the best, if there are problems with the in-laws, if there are problems with the biological mom or dad or whatever, try to grin and bear it. Try to, yeah, set up your home with the structure and the rules and the that you need to create the family that you want, and know that it isn't going to last forever. And when they go off to college or whatever, they might just call you up and say, you know what? I think she would have the best response to. You see it in the movie Stepmom, where Susan Sarandon's daughter, she starts to learn what she can go to the Julia Roberts character with, like painting trees and an art project at home, or like she realizes, I can go to my mom for this and I can go to my stepmom for that. And you really can fulfill those two different roles, and the person is better because she had them both.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
agree. I've come to appreciate my role as a stepmom. Like with my stepkids, I never heard, you're not my mom, I don't have to listen to you. Because I always said that. Like, I'm not your mom and I'm not your dad. I'm on your team, but I can't be on your team if you lie to me or whatever the case may be, right?
Exactly.
So I never made it like that competition part. So I think I kind of like circumvented that. But now it gets come full circle in the sense that they're both like, well, she's not my mom and she's not my dad. And like you said, they
Yeah.
can come to me for different things. Like my stepson and I are very close and we're friends essentially. Like kind of like you, like you're a trusted mentor, a
Yeah.
trusted guide, whatever. And
Exactly.
they can come to you about whatever. And, even when he lived with us full time, I was like, hey, you know what? It's your life. You get to make decisions about your life. Having said
Yeah.
that, whatever decisions you make, there may be consequences with that as well. But I can help you. Whatever happens, unless you kill yourself or somebody else, we can get through it. It might be messy, but we can get through it.
Yeah.
But so I always got like behind the scenes stuff or like what was really going on because he knew that there wasn't really, not that I didn't have any like emotional investment because obviously I did, but I wouldn't get so like wrapped up around it that I could be like, it's your life.
That's because you don't see the kid as an extension of yourself. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, so many parents do, and they're not supposed to.
Yeah.
For instance, I became a vegetarian years ago because I saw a movie, and it made me, I became a vegetarian because of it. My kid was 4 at the time, and so he became a vegetarian. And several years ago, he's now 15. I started saying to him, you can eat meat if you want. You didn't see that movie. I did.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the reasons why I can't stand people who are extremely religious and program their children, because then you get to be at the age of 15, 18, 20, and you haven't asked yourself anything about, what do I believe? Does this ring true for me just because it's been programmed? So I said to him, if I choose a vegetarian diet, it doesn't mean you have to. It is your life. And if you want, for you to become a vegetarian, you would have to watch the same movie and have the same reaction to it that I did. And maybe
Maybe
you
he
won't.
wouldn't.
Exactly. So the problem that I see so much with people from the 80s, because like I said, that's when I was raised, is that boomer parents were full of ego, and your children were absolutely an extension of yourself. If they did good, it reflected good, and if they did bad, it reflected bad. Being the stepmom is kind of like being the cool, fun aunt. You're the mentor, you're the adult that can be turned to, but because you don't see the child as an extension of yourself, if they mess up or not, you're like, well, I'm here for you if you mess up and you need help, but you're not that invested in what it says about you, for this person to behave or do what they're going to do.
When you're in a good place, because
Yes.
early on in my years, like I took everything they did personally, right? Like if they were, even if I got like a weird look, like they hate me right away, like worst case scenario, right? But yeah, it takes like getting to that point of like, okay, I'm good. And like you said, taking the ego out of everything. Like, I think that's the hardest part, but yet just being able to say, okay, what's my part in this? How am I showing up? Because these years, because I'm in it, seem really long, like having the kids in the house and going back and forth and the drama with the other house and all of that. But then at some point, like your stepson, he's 24, is out of the house and can look back on his childhood with an adult view and like, oh, she was really struggling because of X, Y, and Z, or, she's really not a bad person, or wow, that I don't want to go back to any of that situation. And so if you view like I've only got 18 years, I think that really limits like your view of like having time with your kids, because they're going to grow up and like you want to build a relationship with them when they're in the house and like when they're around, that when they become adults that they can come back and you guys can be friends and you can hang out or have good times together. So I think that email, like as scary as that might have been, like I think that was amazing. I don't know that I would have been able to do that. It might have taken me a while too. But yeah, that's amazing.
Well, here's the thing. I think the checking your ego and becoming self-aware enough to constantly check your ego is something that it's a constant. And it even happens with my kid, because my kid is now 15. He's absolutely an adolescent, sullen, brooding. Oh my God.
The sky is always falling.
Where that adorable, happy kid went to, I have no idea, but he is nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
And it's all about me, because when he gets home and he's sullen, I'm like, how was your day? And I'm like, he's mad at me. He looked at me wrong and he raised an eyebrow or whatever. And I'm like, it's not about you. And he's tired. He has a basketball game coming up that he's worried about. whatever. There's so much more that goes on in his life besides me. And then so I'm going to worry about it, thinking it's all about me for like 45 minutes. And then he's going to come and say, so what's for dinner? And he's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know exactly.
I was worried for nothing.
Right.
It's not about me. It isn't. So the ego checking is constant. It is a constant thing to realize that you're not the center of the universe.
Right. Well, and that's the hard part about like being a stepmom before you have kids of your own, or you're just like, it's definitely about me. It's because they hate me. It's because I'm a stepmom. It's because, and then
absolutely,
you're like, they're not even thinking about you. Like, not even thinking about you. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for being here. Like, thanks for coming on and sharing your story and being vulnerable and all the things. Where can people find you? What do you have going on? Like, what offers do you have?
Yeah. Okay. So you can find me at healsinglove.com. I'm doing personal empowerment coaching. I actually have a really good deal going on right now. It is my beta program because it's really, really new. It is a full year, unlimited 30-minute sessions for $997. The only caveat is that the homework that you get that we agree on has to be finished before you schedule your next appointment.
Okay.
So if a week goes by or a month goes by, it's just, however long it took you to do the homework. So one full year, 30-minute unlimited sessions, $997. The only caveat is the homework has to be completed before.
You have to do the work.
Yeah, before you schedule the next appointment. And it's nothing scary. It's really just about excavating why you are where you are, and do you want to remain there? And let's take the steps to get you where you want to be.
But that is scary. I don't think it's scary, like, once you actually do it. I think it's kind of fun to see, like, how did I get here? What's happening? But
scary might be taking steps to change your life, but the actual, like, what did my religion teach me about myself? Or what did my father have to say about this, that, and the other?
I love that.
Yeah, I do too.
Thank you so much for being on. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I love being here. I actually never talk about step parenting, so this was a huge treat. Yeah. No, I talk so much about fatherless daughters and empowerment and forgiveness and all that stuff. That to do a podcast that has to do with something else is refreshing. It's wonderful. I loved it.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this week's episode. If anything was helpful or resonated with you, please share it on social media and tag me. I'm just at Alicia Crasco. And if you could leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it, that would also be really helpful. And if you find yourself struggling with your stepmom journey and you want a little bit more support without the hefty price tag of coaching, you might want to check out the Stepmom Side community, which is my own private community for stepmoms, where you get to connect with other stepmoms around the world and myself, where I hold weekly office hours and monthly group coaching. It's kind of like you have your own personal coach in your own back pocket. Again, without that hefty price tag. See you next week.